This is Solar Impulse TV coming to you live from the Monaco Control Center. And this is the round-the-world flight attempt. It's already begun. Began yesterday with a lot of fanfare, and we've had a huge media interest. You can find out much more information on our site, solarimpulse.com. The first leg was only yesterday, feels like much longer than that. And that was from Abu Dhabi International Airport to Muscat, Oman, with the pilot, André Borschberg. And Bertrand Piccard took off this morning from Oman, fairly early, not too early though, and took off under, again, a pretty hazy sky, a lot of dust in Oman because of sandstorms in neighboring countries. And he's in the air now, and he will be landing a little later than expected. And there are a few more tests going on up in the air. The pilots are using this time in the air on these relatively short flights to test the new aircraft. Lots of modifications have taken place with the equipment and the systems. And there was a big oxygen test, I believe, today, and a few other equipment tests have been taking place. So a bit more about today's leg then, from Muscat International Airport to Ahmedabad, which is in the state of Gujarat in India, the Prime Minister's home state, in fact. The first time we've crossed an ocean with SI2, the Arabian Sea. And again, we're a little bit late in landing, but we're expecting that fairly shortly. So stay tuned on Solar Impulse TV. Now, the name of the airport, Ahmedabad International Airport, that I can manage, but the full name I found a little bit more difficult. So I spoke to our Indian friend Sujata, and I asked Sujata if she could please give me the full pronunciation as it should be done. Sujata.
Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, International Airport in Ahmedabad. Namaste.
Well, namaste to you too, Sujata. Thank you very much. And I'm going to make it my mission to pronounce that full name correctly. And if you can help me as well, please, if you are able to pronounce that, please send it in if you think you can do better than Sujata, because any help would be very, very gratefully received. A little earlier, I spoke to Bertrand Piccard, and we've subtitled it because he was wearing an oxygen mask. It wasn't particularly easy to understand, but I've managed to speak Bertrand very well, I think, and this is what he said when we spoke to him just a short while ago.
The main point is that for the first time, Solar Impulse has crossed the sea of Arabia, the Arabian Sea, and it's the first time that the solar-powered airplane is flying in Asia. Not only India, but in Asia. There were never any solar airplanes. And also, it's a world record for pre-declared distance. So it's really a flight that has a lot of interesting facts. The previous one, of course, was Solar Impulse also. It was André in Dallas. So we start the flight around the world in a very good way. A fantastic flight of André yesterday to Oman, and a wonderful welcome yesterday. And now the flight to India. And we are really doing flight around the world now.
Thank you, Bertrand. That was great. One more question, and then I'll let you start preparing for your descent. You must be very happy with all of the media interest that we've had around the world for the start of this round-the-world flight attempt.
Yes, and I am very happy also that the media are interested by the message about clean technologies, about renewable energies. This is really great. It's not only about flying the airplane, it's about what it means in terms of better future, better quality of life.
That was Bertrand Piccard, the pilot of today's flight from Muscat International Airport to Ahmedabad, just taking us through some of the key points of today's flight. And the key point being that when Bertrand lands, there's a very good chance he'll have broken a solar aviation record. We've got a whole stack of them already, running into the second leg of this round-the-world flight attempt, and already it looks like Bertrand Piccard is on the way to breaking the solar aviation record for pre-declared distance. Of course, that has to be ratified by the Fédération Aviation Internationale. They do it in French. And as soon as we get that confirmation, of course, we'll let you know. So takeoff was this morning from Amman International Airport. You saw some nice images there of us over Abu Dhabi International Airport. So let's take a look back to this morning, a reminder of how it all went when Bertrand Piccard took off on his first leg and our second leg of the round the world flight attempt. Let's take a look.
Solar Impulse, are you ready?
Solar Impulse is ready.
Okay, Bertrand from Albert, you are clear to proceed according to the instructions from the tower. Have a great flight and have great sunlight.
Thank you so much, Albert. Thank you.
That was this morning when Solar Impulse 2 took off from Muscat International Airport to head over to Ahmedabad in India. Our first stop in India, heading over the Arabian Sea, and Bertrand Piccard is in the plane right now. And as soon as we get images of the plane, we will of course head straight to them. The estimated arrival time is not quite yet known. We are a little later than we had expected, but this is fairly normal for Solar Impulse. And these shorter flights are being used to test various elements of the plane. Both the pilots need to get more used to the plane. They knew the first prototype, SIA, extremely well over those 2 missions over the last few years. And this is a chance to get to know it on relatively short legs. And we say relatively, the shortest flight so far was 13 hours, which is still a bit of a slog for most pilots. Before we get the really big ones, which will be over the Pacific Ocean and over the Atlantic Ocean, flights of up to 5 days and 5 nights. And that really is going to be another order of challenge, both human, logistical, and technical. Well, we've been now in the studio in our Monaco Mission Control Center. We have Patrick Médecin, who's the non-resident ambassador of Monaco to India. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And if I ever forget, I can just look at that wonderful pin you've got there and I can see the 2 flags to remind myself. So Mr. Médecin, you're a non-resident ambassador, which is why we're lucky enough to have you with us here in Monaco. So that means that you regularly fly out to India on behalf of the Monaco government?
Yes, I represent Prince Albert and Monaco in India, and I go regularly when it is necessary. Unfortunately, I cannot be in India at that present time because I have also a busy time schedule. Okay, so, but I follow, and I am here to follow this first stop in India.
Well, I don't know, you might have to represent Prince Albert a little bit more because he seems to be spending a lot of time here. We've had him for the first takeoff and landing. He was here this morning for the takeoff of the second leg for his friend Bertrand Piccard. And, well, maybe we'll see him for landing, who can say, a little bit later on. And we're in India. It's a huge country, a very important developing country, a very fast developing country. And the point of Solar Impulse is to spread the message that sustainable development is the way forward and can be achieved without lowering everyone's quality of life. So do you think that the people in general in India, whether it's from the top, from the government to the voters, this huge population, do you think this is a message that they're going to find appealing, that really the way to go forward is a world without pollution?
It is a message that is already understood. The new prime minister, we knew because he was, elected last year, mid of last year.
And we're landing in his home state
yes,
as well.
and it is in his own state that, the plane is arriving. So it is also a message. He is very interested in all what is related to sustainable development and the growth in India. It will be a major year of the recovery and growth in India will be to 2015 and will be with, taking into account all what is, energy saving, which is a major goal for any country and for India too. For the latest information I have had this afternoon, I know that some newspaper in India have already spoken about the project, and you know that on internet you can you just say pick up a few comments, and all the comments that I have seen are very positive and also very interested in the project. So I think in a country like India, where you have a big number of young people, it is also something that can be understood, your project.
Well, the major conglomerate Aditya Birla is our host partner in India, and that's a good example of the way that industry enterprise is getting behind this as well. There are lots of innovative projects and companies in India at the moment that are working in this field of sustainable development as well, aren't there?
Yes, of course. And, we support them here in Monaco, and we try also to make links with this big country that is India, and also big and fast growing one.
I mean, Monaco is a tiny country, but you've managed to have quite a big profile in relation to your size, largely, I would imagine, due to the work of Prince Albert.
Of course, because, when he speaks at the Tribune of or when he speaks at the international level through his foundation, or even in Monaco, he has implemented the policies. It is not only words, it is also action that, he takes on the day-to-day life. And he shows also the major concern he has, and now we all have here to meet the new goals.
You're watching Solar Impulse TV live. If you're wondering where the plane is, it's still in the sky with Bertrand Piccard, going through a few tests, a few technical tests, and making the most of the time in the air because the batteries are almost full. So it's not like a normal plane where you're worrying about fuel running out. He's got lots of time up there in the air, and he's making the most of it. Expecting him to land later. We don't have an exact estimated time of landing. Actually, as soon as I get that information, I will, of course, let you know. Talking to Patrick Médecin, who is Monaco's non-resident. I think it's important to say that because people were wondering, well, why is he in Monaco? He's non-resident Monaco ambassador to India. And those links you were talking about, what kind of links are there between Monaco and India?
We are developing them because, the knowledge of Monaco has a lot to be developed. Of course, the first major goal is tourism, to attract these new populations that begin to travel more and more in all the world, and there is an increase. We see the first steps of, for example, in the group of Indian coming here, and we also the second important subject I have is also to develop activities, business activities between India and Monaco, or Monaco and India, and more companies here are interested in the Indian market, and we have in Monaco some companies that are in niche, very interesting for some markets and some big cities in India.
Well, if any of your Indian friends, colleagues, contacts want to come visit us here in the Mission Control Center, then they're more than welcome to do so, as are you. We hope we'll see you many times over the next, well, what is it now, 10 legs to go. We've already got one under our belt, and we're expecting the landing of the second one very soon. And I hope you'll stay around later on this afternoon, early evening, to see the landing.
Yes, of course. I will be happy to join you.
Thank you very much, Patrick Midsin, non-resident Monaco ambassador to India. And that landing is going to be, well, I'm not sure exactly, but we're just waiting for final confirmation. As I said, Bertrand Piccard enjoying his time in the air, as he always does, and making the most of it. Now, this leg is the second part of what we call, in Solar Impulse, a pit stop. Well, not like Formula One, which is around, what was it these days, around 20 seconds, something like that. For us, it is, after all, about 6 or 7 hours. But this isn't a project about speed, it's a project of stamina. So that first full leg was Abu Dhabi International Airport to Ahmedabad, taking a pit stop in Amman. Around about 6 or 7 hours. The pit stop means that we just stay overnight, change pilot, do some essential maintenance checks, and then we're on our way. Sounds simple, doesn't it? Well, it's not quite as simple as that. We asked Flight Director Raymond Claire to tell us more, and here's what we found out.
We already trained a pit stop during the Across America mission. This was on a flight from St. Louis to Cincinnati, and then from Cincinnati to Washington. A pit stop is a flight one day, landing in the evening, and the next morning change of pilot, and we continue. And why are we going to do such exercises during the round-the-world flight? It's to take profit from a good weather windows when we don't want to fly too long. For example, we want to limit the flight duration to about 12 to 15 hours. Then we can fly on the first day, land on an airport, and then we make a post-flight analysis, a post-flight check of the aircraft, a new briefing for the other pilot, and we take off again the next morning. There is a big difference between a pit stop and a regular stop. It's much easier for the team because we don't need to park the aircraft to build the mobile hangar, for example. We don't do any immigration, we stay on the airport. So it's easier for the team, I think. But it's quite a tough exercise also for the Mission Control Center because we have to prepare 2 flights in a row with a very short stop in between. We have to brief both flights before the first flight because otherwise it will be everything together. So it's quite an interesting exercise. And by the way, the Cincinnati pit stop was not planned 2 days before. It was just planned on very short notice.
So there you go. I hope that's a little clearer now what a pit stop is, and we remember it very well. One of the people who remember is the man next to me now, Mission Engineer Mickey Anger.
Hey, good evening.
Do you remember that pit stop? It was a tiring one, wasn't it? Stopping in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah. Cincinnati was something special.
But it was a great experience as well, even though it was, as we heard there, not planned particularly in advance. We thought, right, we've got to get to our next stage and we have to do this pit stop. And it was worth it, wasn't it? Because we've managed to integrate that into the round the world now. And this pit stop was planned much further in advance.
Yes, basically the pit stop in Cincinnati at that time was a great training for the team, and now it's part of our standard procedures we want to do around the world, and we want to use the pit stop several times. Yeah.
But not easy. As Raymond was saying, well, nothing that we do is really easy
No.
because there are different challenges. Even though yesterday was a 13-hour flight, which for Solar Impulse is just nothing. There were lots of things to overcome. We couldn't take off exactly on time. We didn't land exactly on time. And it's the same today. We had a slight delay in takeoff today, and now we are running a little over schedule. Give us an idea of what the new estimated landing time is.
Yeah, as the last I heard from the control room was about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from now. Bertrand is currently at 3,000 feet descending, already in landing configuration, meaning landing gears is already extended, outriggers are out, air brakes are set. So basically we are waiting for the last clearance to go down to the traffic pattern. Runway will be 05 and our traffic pattern altitude is about 1,500 feet and then descending.
So runway 05, if you're at Ahmedabad International Airport, if you know it, then try and get yourself into the best vantage point. Because if you've never seen Solar Impulse land before, and I've been lucky enough to see it quite a few times, it's a wonderful sight, is it? I suppose you don't even get bored. You've seen all of them. It never gets boring, does it?
It's never boring. Every flight is special. Yeah.
And every flight's different.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Okay, so as you said, into that final phase already, and we were talking about the tests because André said himself yesterday that he's still getting to know this new aircraft. Of course, they've had test flights and training flights in Switzerland and in Abu Dhabi, but it's a chance to get to test all these new systems because many have been modified. So they won't be as used to them as they were with the first aircraft.
Yes. Well, it was a little same at the first aircraft, but now we had a little less time because many changes came late. It's typical for such a challenging project and a prototype. So they trained both André yesterday, Bertrand today to use the oxygen. We did some qualification test for the oxygen system, like leak detection, reconfiguration of the oxy system. And actually Bertrand was quite long on oxygen today because he maintained flight level 250 for at least 6-7 hours.
This is more for people who've been following the mission flights in America and back in 2012 to Morocco. But how different is this plane in terms of the cockpit? Would it be a very different experience for them to what they used before?
Well, the handling itself is more or less the same, like the aerodynamic stability and so on, but
You mean just as difficult?
As difficult, yeah. It's definitely not easy, no. But what is more complex now is really the systems on board. There's a lot of redundancy in, but redundancy brings complexity.
Let's just explain what redundancy means. Redundancy means that if there's going to be a double for pretty much every piece of equipment, so if one piece of equipment fails, there'll be a second one to back it up.
Yeah.
And the complexity
exactly.
obviously means you've got twice as many pieces of equipment.
Yes, you have double the warnings, you have double the equipment on board, you double the switches, you double the circuit breakers. So if you have a technical problem in air, it takes a lot of good training and knowledge how to react, and you have to have a good system knowledge to trigger the right switches. Yeah.
And this being an experimental project, there's always risk involved. The team tries to mitigate that as much as possible. There's a huge amount of training goes on for not just the pilots, but also you, the engineers, testing, retesting, and retesting everything. And we saw there was a slight hiccup yesterday before André Borschberg took off, a red warning light. And there was a moment we were wondering, well, is the plane actually going to take off? And we had a packed house yesterday. We had lots of guests, and everything was fine in the end. But where are we now with that particular situation? Has that been resolved? It must have been, because we managed to take off this morning.
Yes, exactly. So yesterday we managed to cycle this power supply, which was a power supply in the cockpit for instruments. But during the flight it behaved very nicely, and during the pit stop the aircraft was checked. The system was specifically checked by the electric engineers and the guys there, and now it behaved very well in the second flight.
Okay, you're watching Solar Impulse TV Live. Speaking to Mickey Anger, one of our mission engineers who is here with us at the Mission Control Center. We're still waiting for images of the plane of SI2, and as soon as we get them, of course, we'll have them here on SITV. Okay, there you go, there's a picture of a very attentive, concentrated-looking mission control room. And I wonder if we can just get some pictures of the pilot in the cockpit from the satellite communication. Maybe not just yet, but We do have cameras inside the cockpit. Let's see what we can get. No, not just yet. And as soon as we get there, Mickey, I'll ask you to stay for a second. There we go. I was going to say, describe what you can see in front of you. And what we can see is a lot of black. And that's because Bertrand, we can just see his arm there, can't we, in his natty orange vest.
Yes, exactly. It's as you can see, it's dark. So and he had to dim down the cockpit to have a good outside visual reference. So it's really necessary to have a dark cockpit, which is also part of a standard, a good cockpit in aviation. Yeah.
And just to let you know that our newest team member has just arrived. His timing is perfect. It's Prince Albert of Monaco who's entering the control center now to take up what has become his regular seat next to Raymond Claire. Fourth time he's been here now, second landing already. And there he is taking it, and we fully expect him to be welcoming Bertrand Piccard on the ground. He was there this morning bright and early. It was, correct me if I'm wrong, Mickey, because I'm getting confused with UTC and CET and GST and what are we now, IST, the different time zones. It was around 3 a.m.
Whoa, it's a good question.
It's a long time ago, isn't it?
It's a long time
Were you in
ago, and
bed?
I'm also confused about all these timings in 2 days in a row, and so 3:30, I think.
Yes, 3:30, that sounds right to me. 3:30, which time? One of them. There you go.
No, local time Monaco, so 2:30 UTC.
Right, there you go. 2:30 UTC or Greenwich Mean Time, if you prefer, or if the aviation experts prefer Zulu. Is that correct?
That's correct, fully, Connor.
Okay, so still waiting for the first pictures of the plane. I think I've got a little bit of time just to remind those of you who are new to the project of what the next few steps will be. So once we land in Ahmedabad, all of the team, including Mickey, will probably, collapse for a little bit? Is that your plan?
Yeah, there's not a lot of time for that. Yeah,
Okay.
Tomorrow
Well,
a little bit.
Collapse for a little bit.
Collapse for a little bit.
Before you slap yourself around the face and wake yourself up, because we're already into the planning phase for the next flight, which is from Ahmedabad to Mandalay in Burma. And yep, you've got it, another pit stop. I wonder if your stamina levels will hold out, Mickey and the team. Stopping in Varanasi just overnight. So that's the plan so far. We don't know exactly when. We definitely do intend to stay in Ahmedabad for at least 3 days of activities, because we do want to make the most of our time in these different stops to spread the message of Solar Impulse. And as we heard a little earlier from Monaco's non-resident ambassador to India, it's a message which is really very well received in India. The issues of pollution, renewable energies, clean technologies are just as important and essential to the residents of India as they are anywhere else around the world. Mickey, thanks very much. I'll let you head back to your place inside Mission Control as we enter this final phase of Bertrand Piccard's flight from Amman, Muscat International Airport, through to Ahmedabad International Airport, which I am going to learn to pronounce properly, the full name of the airport. And if you can help me with that, please do send in your suggestions, whether it's by video, photo, or just writing it down phonetically would help me. And you can do that by going to solarimpulse.com, and you'll find out how to get in touch, whether it's via Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, of course, Google+. It's all there. Our Weibo will be coming soon as well, because that's a huge Chinese social network, and I know many people are talking about Solar Impulse already. We've had a lot of Chinese coverage, as we have Indian coverage. We heard all the big Indian press outlets have been covering this, and they're looking forward to us arriving. I understand that there's quite some reception committee which has been organised. A lot of excitement, as there always is when Solar Impulse visits a country for the first time. You can see Raymond Claire there, talking to Christoph Schlettich, who is today's Capcom, Pilot Communication. And again, until we get those images of the plane, very quickly take you through the next steps. So, as Mickey was saying, a very short chance to relax and sleep before we prepare the next flight from Ahmedabad to Mandalay via Varanasi, that other pit stop. From Mandalay, we will fly to Chongqing in China. A short stop, not quite sure yet. This could either be a pit stop, if we're really ambitious, or a mobile hangar stop. We haven't seen the mobile hangar yet, but that's also quite a sight. And from there to Nanjing, in the east of China. And we will spend quite a few weeks in Nanjing, between 3 weeks and a month, making the most of our time and allowing as many people to visit the plane as possible. And the other reason, Michi, is a technical reason. It's not just about our spreading the message, but it's good to use as much time as possible to find a weather window and make sure the pilot, as well as the plane, are ready.
Yes, it's not only the technical thing. I think the airplane will be all right. Sure, we do a thorough inspection before we go over the Pacific. But on the other hand, it's also energy which drives us, and the weather window. So first of all, the weather window, and then we have to wait until the sun is still a little bit more up, because we are quite early in the year. So we have to wait for enough sun elevation, so a longer day, getting to summer, like April, May, something like that, and get a good weather window. And the combination of both then will make us fly to Hawaii, hopefully.
And people who don't know the project, first of all, they'll be thinking, well, how can a solar airplane fly through the night? That's impossible. Okay, I think we've covered that question. The second one is, what on earth are they talking about, 5 days and 5 nights? Surely that's impossible. And it's going to be an enormous challenge. I know they've trained for it. We've had 72-hour simulations already from both pilots, but how can you possibly know when you take off what the weather window will be 5 days and 5 nights later? It's a real challenge.
Yes, it is, and we don't know exactly. That's the
Part
uncertainty.
Of the fun.
Yeah, that's the uncertainty we have to play with and we have to deal with. But we all know 1 day, 2 day, 3 day weather forecasts are quite precise. 4 day, 5 days not. But you can, or our meteorologists can find a good weather situation globally, and then we take off. And by advancing in the flight for the first, second day, we can also advance in our forecast and then in flight decide, correct, change altitude, change the destination if needed. Hawaii is quite a goal for us, that's clear, but still there are several airports, so this is open.
And we have our flight strategists working flat out as well, Christophe Bezot and his team, and they are providing constantly updated models from takeoff to landing. So I think it's going to be, it's going to be a long period for everybody, but they really have to make sure they can keep adjusting that flight window, because the ocean it's a whole other ballgame, isn't it?
Oh yes, what you just said, like training for 72 hours in a simulator without the cold temperature. We actually see no possibility to do it below 4 days, so I think 4 days at least. And then you have the cold temperature environment, being on oxygen, resting limitations due to turbulence, difficult weather situation, change of plans, pilot updates. So it will be difficult for the pilot, especially for the pilot, but very challenging for the MCC on ground.
We can see the MCC now. Prince Albert of Monaco, who's come in to give the final information to Bertrand Piccard as he finalises his descent, and to welcome him on the ground once he is in Ahmedabad International Airport. You can see a nice picture there of the MCC, the Mission Control Centre, the Monaco Control Centre. Raymond Claire looking attentively, in touch constantly with the team on the tarmac. And you're in the mission engineer team, Michi. Well, you're the big boss really, aren't you, here?
Well, maybe not the big boss, but I have a great team. We are all, I think we have a great team, good guys there.
Oh, well, let's explain briefly what you do. You're the mission engineer team. You're one of these 4 different, in French say les pôles, the 4 different groups, and the mission engineers are, is it true to say you're the ones who know this plane inside out?
Yes, actually, I know it quite well. Not inside out. I still also need the support of the electricians and the structure guys, because they know it inside out. But it's true, we learned to know it quite well now during the testing campaigns and so on. And now it's up to us to transfer this knowledge to the not so experienced team members. And regarding mission engineering itself, it's really a challenge to combine all groups, like you said, ATC, simulation, meteo, the pilots, the management, flight director, and the external world, to find the perfect weather window to plan and execute the flight.
Well, when I used to watch the NASA missions, I'd see pictures of Houston Mission Control, and I'd think, what on earth are all those people doing? How could there possibly be something for each of those people to do? If we look here, it's packed. We've got, when it's full, around about 20 people. What are you all looking at the back on your screens? What data are you receiving from the plane?
Well, especially us on the Capcom, we really see each turbulence, each deflection the pilot does actually on the control system. But we also see his altitude, his position. That's pretty clear, but we keep tracking the process of energy. We track the altitude if we are on our plan, on our scheduled plan. And if we find a deviation, we have to see why and then do a change. Yeah.
And you as well can see a lot of that information. We try and be as transparent as we possibly can. I think we're extremely transparent. And looking on the website now, you can have a look around. All of the information you can see on those little icons is real-time information in the cockpit. You can see the same things that Mickey and his team are looking at, things like the altitude, elevation, speed, even as far as looking at how much oxygen he's got in his blood to make sure he's healthy. Anything I forgot, Mickey?
Energy.
Oh, of course, energy. You can see how much power he's got in the batteries. Quite a lot is the answer so far, isn't it?
Yes, batteries are full this evening because we spent the whole day at full altitude and descended with nearly no engines running. That was pretty cool today.
Yeah, we had two options. We had a lower option, a slower option, and a faster option. And we've kind of gone in between the two now.
Yes, in the beginning we were a little bit behind our schedule from takeoff time, but then we saw the weather situation. The cirrus clouds we expected were not that strong, so we could charge our batteries faster, and in the end we could increase airspeed, we could increase altitude, get more ground speed by the supporting wind, and that's why we are really fast now in Ahmedabad.
You can also talk to the pilot via the website. Probably not right now, he's a little bit busy. But particularly over the longer flights, we want to find as many ways to entertain him and stimulate him as possible. And you can send emails, you can send tweets, and if you're lucky, he might send one back to you. And we will be taking the best, of course, the best of those tweets and photos, and we'll be talking every single day to the pilot. The pilot for the Pacific crossing is going to be André Borschberg, which we found out just a few days before takeoff. And it was decided between André Borschberg and Bertrand Piccard who would do the first one. I think everyone wins, though, because one of them will do the start, and that was André Borschberg, but obviously that means that Bertrand gets to be the man who says, yep, we made it, when the plane lands back in Abu Dhabi sometime late June. If you're wondering why we're not seeing the plane yet, that's because we're still waiting for images. It's not visible from the ground yet. And as Mickey explained, there's not too much to see in the cockpit either. Let's take another look anyway, just to prove it to you. There you go. All we can see of that is a lot of darkness, a bit of instrumentation, and a nice orange arm. That's Bertrand Piccard. We will have shortly images of the plane arriving at Ahmedabad International Airport. You might notice on the left arm of all the team now, the badge has changed. When we move to a new country with the plane, we have a badge for every country. That is an orange India badge we have. Let me just check, have I got mine on? Yes, I have. So do you, Mickey. Good man. Everyone has been extremely well trained so far.
Well, actually, the people in India or in Ahmedabad could see the aircraft flying because the lights are already on the wing. So maybe there's a chance already to take pictures.
Okay, so if you can send your pictures in to us right now, you might even get them before us if you've got a good vantage point from where you live. Please send us in your photos. Maybe you can send in a Vine video as well, and we'll do our best. We'll get them onto the website as soon as possible. We will, of course, be sharing all of the best content here on Solar Impulse TV. And talking more about the reason that we're doing all this. Why are we spending so much time, energy, effort in taking this plane around the world? Well, it's to spread the message of Solar Impulse that it is possible to do extraordinary things with renewable technology and efficient energies.
It would have taken less time.
And that what we've managed to do in the air, you can do on the ground as well. We all can.
But I'm happy because it's beautiful. And then you never slow down.
And we'll have more about our initiative, Future is Clean, which is a way for you to sign up and to show the world leaders that we all want to do whatever is necessary to have a world without any fossil fuels. That's futureisclean.org. And there'll be plenty of opportunities to give you more information about that.
The good thing is today the glide angle is just with the PAPI, so you can easily use the PAPI, which is good.
Exactly. Exactly.
This is Solar Impulse TV. These are live images coming from the Monaco Mission Control Center. And we're just waiting now. In a few minutes' time, we'll have those magical first pictures of Solar Impulse at night with all of those LED landing lights switched on. As it almost silently heads down to the runway. We have now an estimated arrival time around 4 minutes from now. So at 7:45 p.m. GMT, around about 11:15 in Ahmedabad. And we don't yet have the images of the plane, but we're expecting them very shortly.
How far am I from the airport, Christoph?
Literally about 2 nautical miles, and you have to go, I would say, 4 to 5 miles to get to the 1.5 mile point, so a total of 10 track miles.
And I think now we can see the first images of Bertrand Piccard in Solar Impulse 2
I would say
arriving over Ahmedabad Airport
I would recommend for you to take heading
for
1
that final descent.
Yes.
He's now in constant communication with Mission Control, with H.S.H, who you can see in the foreground, and Raymond Claire, the flight director, next to him. And yes, that is Prince Albert of Monaco, who has followed this project for a long time, been one of the real supporters, even before the missions. He's come out to see the plane take off and landing many
Bertrand,
times.
continue left turn heading 150.
Here in the studio I've got Mick Younger, mission engineer, and sometime pilot
stop the
communication
climb, the
Capcom
descent.
as well.
You're pretty high, so don't
You've
even
been on the
think
project
about
for many years
slowing the
now. You
descent.
must have seen Prince Albert on previous missions.
Yes, I did.
And when was that?
Well, on the unveiling and on several flights, he joined us in Payerne on test flights and mission flights, so we met sometimes. Yeah.
So he's almost part of the team now. He looks like he's part of the
He
team.
is.
When he's got all of his gear on. So tell us what we can expect soon. We're just waiting for those final images, Mickey, but if you could give us a quick idea of what the
Bertrand, I
final
recommend
stages
to
are.
increase the descent rate here.
Well, as I can see for the moment on the map, he's in the downwind for runway 05 and already initiating the turn soon to the final, to the base 05. So left-hand traffic pattern runway 05. He has quite some wind from the north and a high ground speed at 40 knots. but as soon as he gets a little lower, it should decrease, and then he has really the wind on the nose, and it should be a nice approach for him. Yeah.
And by how much does the wind need to decrease before it's a safe landing time?
Well, I spoke about wind at altitude, but on ground it should be below 8 knots on the nose. And this is actually the case from what I heard 20 minutes ago, 0 to 5 knots in the runway axis, so on the nose, from the front, pretty good landing conditions.
Well, he's been delayed by around 2 or 3 minutes, that's the latest indications we have, so around about 6 minutes' time. And you can decipher those maps better than me, Michi. By what rate is he descending now? Can you give us that information?
Yes, he puts like 40% of air brake at 32, 33 knots indicated. This gives him a descent rate of 150 feet per minute and nice 3-degree glide slope. And he's already in this configuration, descending continuously. And basically then he just plays with the engine power to correct the descent, the glide path.
As ever, we see lots of people on the runway, which is extremely rare for aviation, and normally it's a very strict rule, isn't it? As soon as anyone's on the runway's closed. So how did we manage to get around that?
Well, it's part of our standard procedure. We need a catching crew in position to basically support the aircraft in landing. We have also now on the second aircraft we have outriggers, so it's not a must for the aircraft anymore to have a crew on ground, but it's just to ensure the safety of the aircraft. We don't want to have a wing to drop to the ground and so on, so get damaged. So basically when it's landed, the aircraft will be secured, and you will also hear the call-outs from the ground crew, Chief Neil saying main wheel height 10 meters and so on, until main wheel touchdown, tail wheel touchdown, and then the biker on the wing pole will catch the bike, and then there will be the call-out, aircraft secured, and main wheel stop in the end.
Well, these are 2 electric bikes that managed to advance to around about 40 kilometers an hour, don't they? And they're able to chase the plane fast.
Yeah, even faster, yes.
Even faster? You've done some tests, have you?
Yeah, sure.
So they'll catch the plane, and then after that they'll have to physically pull the plane from the landing position across to the final position. Can you tell us what kind of home the plane is going to have once it's pulled over? Is it a hangar? Is it a tent? So what's it going to be there?
The latest information I got is it's a tent, but I don't know exactly about the position on the airport, to be honest.
Okay, and we also have a mobile hangar, which we haven't used yet. We've done some tests on this in the USA, and looking around the flight route, I've seen that there are some places where mobile hangar is the most likely home for the aircraft.
Well, there's on the next flight, Varanasi, can be a mobile hangar operation if we don't manage the pit stop, or if we want to proceed as fast as possible, then we might use the mobile hangar there. But it's also a good training, because later on for Hawaii and for other flights, there might be the chance that we have to deviate from our current plan to another airport, and there we really need the mobile hangar to protect it, to protect the aircraft from heat, dust, sun, and wind.
And that's because the shape of the plane is so unusual, it's hard to find a hangar that's the right size.
Yeah, it's huge. It's 72 meters wingspan. And hangars on airports are not for free.
No, they're not, and they're usually smaller.
Yes. And you have poles in between and whatever.
It's Solar Impulse TV Live. I'm speaking to Michi, mission engineer, who's explaining the procedure for landing and also giving us an update on what's to come when we start, for example, using the mobile hangar, which is going to be another sight as well. The plane itself is quite impressive, but there's something even more in the realms of science fiction when we see that mobile hangar when it's completely inflated. And another aspect of that is that you can even charge the solar cells when the plane is inside. We're going to head now to Ahmedabad, where we have there, you can see Solar Impulse 2 approaching Ahmedabad International Airport. These are the first pictures we have. Our camera crew just getting into place. We don't make life easy for ourselves, do we, Michi? It would be much easier to land in tiny little airfields where there's no one around and we can land whenever we want. But we head to these international airports often because the countries and the airport authorities involved, they want us to come. JFK is a great point in question. JFK is a huge airport, and we talked about Cincinnati earlier. That would be much, much easier, but it's so much more difficult. One of the reasons that we had said that we might have to land later was because it made life for the airport easier, which you can understand.
Yes, basically we have to also be cooperative with the local ATC, with the traffic, so sometimes we have to adjust our schedule to the airline flights, to the normal flights, yes.
Yeah, yet more data to fit into what is already an extremely complicated adventure. So that little UFO you can see there is Solar Impulse with all of the LED lights lit up brightly. Bertrand Piccard is piloting it, and he's going through his final phases. Here's a good test for you, Mickey. Looking at that picture there, how far off the ground do you think Bertrand Piccard is?
Well, I guess this is around 150 feet now, maybe 200 feet ground. On glide path already in the final. I think it's good wind on the nose at the moment and looks quite stable from here. But actually we increase our cruising speed to have more controllability. Normally we fly 25 knots, and for approach we go to 30, 33 knots as a target to have more aileron efficiency.
Right, same principle of riding a bike then. The slower you go, the less stable you are.
Correct.
And there he is really, as you said, Mickey, descending quite rapidly. Big difference from the last picture we saw. We understand that there is going to be landing in around about 2 minutes' time now. 2 minutes until Bertrand Piccard makes it down. Landing time delayed by around about, what are we now? About an hour and a half later than estimated landing time. And probably a record-breaking attempt as well. I think it was, we were told it was going to be a pre-declared Solar Aviation distance record.
Correct. It's like to pre-declare the waypoints we're gonna fly and pre-declare the record. And it looks like it's not official, but we could make it we could extend our current record by 100 kilometers.
And the previous record was held by Solar Impulse.
Solar Impulse by André Borschberg. So basically today Bertrand Piccard will catch André Borschberg's record here.
It won't last for very long though, because once André Borschberg has done 5 days and 5 nights, I think he gets the upper hand.
We'll see.
Any more records we're expecting? I know there are going to be different records along the way that will be broken. Any idea what the next ones will be?
Well, the biggest record at all is the around the world, speed around the world record, because on solar energy this has never been done. That's our major goal, but certainly there will be different records in between, like a distance record, for example, from Nanjing to Hawaii.
You're watching Solar Impulse TV live, and slightly grainy pictures, but these are quite testing conditions that we have here for our team on the ground, and doing a wonderful job there, just getting it into focus for those last few meters as Solar Impulse approaches the runway. We do have a slight delay between the pictures and Monaco Mission Control, so I expect that when you see the plane in the air, you'll probably hear a big cheer from us here in Monaco, and that's the reason why.
Meter. 1 meter. 9 meters down.
That's it at 17:55 GMT. Bertrand Piccard has landed at Ahmedabad International Airport. The second leg, after 2 days, is in the bag. Congratulations, Bertrand Piccard, and all the team.
Well done, Bertrand. Je passe notre ami Monseigneur le Prince qui est à côté de moi.
And I'm just going to get a few words from Prince Albert of Monaco, who's come yet again to welcome his friend Bertrand Piccard. Let's listen in.
Bertrand, c'est Albert. Écoute, bravo, c'était super. J'ai suivi les dernières minutes là et c'est formidable et ça devait être une belle vue aussi de là-haut. Mais écoute, bravo, on est très content, très fiers.
Merci.
Prince Albert just congratulating
Merci, Albert.
Bertrand.
Merci de ta fidélité. Tu es là au décollage, tu es là à l'atterrissage. Tu nous
For the
accompagnes
wonderful
tout
view
le
as
temps.
well.
Et c'est vrai que c'était un vol absolument magnifique. C'était exceptionnel. La traversée de la mer d'Arabie, l'arrivée sur le Pakistan. C'était vraiment inouï. Attends un instant, il faut juste que je vois avec l'équipe de sol.
Bertrand explaining in French to Prince Albert of Monaco that it was an extraordinary flight for him, particularly the views of him crossing the Arabian Sea. And you can see the photos that Bertrand himself took on our website, crossing briefly in and out of Pakistani airspace, so we can cross yet another country off our list as well. And in fact, the alternative airport would have been Karachi in Pakistan if Bertrand had not been able to make it into Ahmedabad, which he has done.
Good.
He's on the ground, he's safe and sound, and the atmosphere is a lot more relaxed than it was earlier with a highly concentrated team. So we're going to leave you now from Monaco Mission
Also good.
Control Center. Thank you for following this adventure so far, and stay with us. We have continual information on solarimpulse.com, and we will join you again for the next flight. And as soon as we have information about when that is, we'll let you know. But if you're watching this from India, be assured that there will be plenty of events taking place in India, and we'll give you all the information about those events at Ahmedabad International Airport on our website, solarimpulse.com. And thanks again to Mickey for being with us and for giving us his expert information. And join us again soon on Solar Impulse TV.